r/AskReddit. Pawn shop owners. What was the most illegal thing a customer had brought to your shop? Employee not owner. A guy brought in a stack of like 15 laptops that all said property of City Public School right on the top of each one. He then threatened to shoot me when I told him to get out. Edit. Because it's been brought up multiple times. Yes, I am aware that schools, businesses, etc. sometimes sell off old laptops, which is why I don't flat out call the cops whenever somebody brings in a suspected stolen item. There's always the chance that no matter how obviously stolen it is, the person owns it legit. However, I'm not going to risk my job or my conscience by taking in an item if it has a label on it claiming it's somebody else's property. Also, how am I supposed to sell a laptop that says property of City Public Schools on it? Pawn shops have a bad enough rap as it is. A guy literally brought in an RPG. He was doing yard work for this old lady whose husband had passed. She gave it to him for doing some yard work, not realizing it was live and active. The guy was career military, and after the bomb squad came and disabled it, they went to her house and found a trove of similarly very illegal military grade weapons. Not that I'd want anyone to get hurt, but a little old lady in a violent standoff with police would seriously break the tension. Not an owner, but I got a call from a pawn shop saying that one of my at-home employees tried to sell her work computer. It has my company's logo and contact info right on it, plain as day. How stupid can some people be? A school security guard pawned his service pistol and other equipment. He got caught by his supervisor carrying around a pellet gun. TampaBay.com link. So I'm not an owner and I wouldn't call this illegal per se, but I feel like I have to share this. A friend of mine owns a pawn shop, and one day a dude walks in with a cardboard box filled to the top with his own shit. He claims that it's magic, and my friend cuts him off right there and kicks him out. As he is walking out, he drops the box on accident, gets all of his shit on the floor, sees the mess he's made, stares at the horrid pile of shit for a couple of seconds, and runs out of the shop. My friend never got his name and never saw him again. The smell would proceed to linger in the shop for a good month after it was cleaned up. Edit. Typo. When you wrote shit, I presumed you meant stuff, and it was further into the story that my understanding changed. I would like to go back a few minutes and not keep reading. Not an owner but an employee. A man brought in a bag of cocaine and said if I would buy it then resell it back to him in a couple of days. Mind if I call in a buddy? He's an expert in cocaine. Buddy of mine worked at a pawn shop for a few years. They had a guy try to sell them a police walkie-talkie, like straight stolen from a cupboard with a battery taken out. They told him to get ducked and called the cops. I believe they picked the guy up a few hours later. How is that possible if the guy could hear their every communication? Lies. Just a worker here, but we had a couple come in to pawn their backhoe over the weekend, happens a lot, and brought their bill of sale. They wanted a simple $1,000 loan, which wasn't bad considering how much it was worth. No more than 30 minutes later, cops are there with the owner. Apparently they worked for him and went and pawned all of his industrial equipment. How did that go? You had to return it, I assume. Did you get your $1,000 back from the thief? It went as well as they usually do. Police confiscated the item to use it in court to try and extend the sentence. We lost the $1,000 because cops try to tack it on during the legal process. We receive restitution from them for usually a week of about $50 payments, and no more payments after, usually because they aren't working or aren't making enough in jail. Worked at a gun shop and a shady looking guy brought in a few pairs of night vision goggles. Like high-end military grade PVS 14 night vision goggles. Ask him why he was selling them. Oh, I just don't need them anymore. Cool man. Do you mind if I call the company real quick and run the numbers? Sometimes this stuff is stolen property. And as soon as I said that, he jumped across the counter, grabbed the goggles and bolted for the door. That Camaro payment at 29.7% APR hits different after a few months. A friend of mine owns a rather unique store, not a pawn shop, but he sells a lot of authentic medieval weaponry, armor, clothing and similar. While I was there, a young couple decided his shop was the place to sell a few old SS daggers, belts, flags and other Nazi memorabilia. Solid logic. Except for one thing. We are in Germany, Here the state kind of frowns upon owning or selling this kind of stuff. They could have donated it to any museum and would have had no issue with the law whatsoever. I mean, it was not their fault they found it, right? But they figured that if grandpa was a Nazi, he could at least help with the funds for the renovations and decided cash was better than being named in a museum leaflet. My friend was mostly insulted by the idea that just because he owns a medieval store and sells historic weapons, he must know a Nazi collector that would pay cash. But that was the end of it. He told them to get out and donate it, or if they insist on selling it, to ship it to the US. More money from history buffs, or at least not one happy little German Nazi with a new happy stabby toy. I never thought about how Germany treats stuff like that. That's very interesting. Given our history, accusations start to fly rather quickly. We do not want to give these accusations any more basis than they, sadly, have. So a bunch of stuff is illegal. Throw up your arm in the Nazi salute. The nice Mr. Watchmaster will give you a stern warning. You can still buy Mein Kampf though, newly printed, with ideas. You can't prevent them from being spread, but you can add your comments and footnotes, and make sure that people who are just curious get more than pure propaganda. This just reminded me of my friend who pawned the DSLR camera I let him borrow for a school project. I asked for it back a good amount of times and not once did he tell me what he did. I had to hear it from someone else and then he claimed that I gave it to him. Did you get the money back? What camera was it? Nope. He never paid me for it. And it was a Canon EOS Rebel T3i. They aren't worth much now, but this was 5 years ago and it broke my heart because it was a gift from my dad and I had considered him a close friend. I didn't work there but was there at the time. A guy brings in a dead duck, which hunting is illegal in my area, and also why just why? Come on, Dwight. We talked about this. No dead animals in the office. No, this one is different. I found it dead. I had this guitar that had a little sliding door on the side, meant to hold picks. I put weed in there as a joke. Completely forgot about it as I was selling it. They were chill. You could put your weed in there. An MP40, not actually me, but my significant other. He manages a store owned by a national chain. Brought in on porn, and as with all neat things he was just waiting for the loan to drop. After 30 days of non-payment, item goes out for sale. At this point he could purchase it. Now I'm not a huge gun historian, but I know the era and style and had to ask. That gun is super rare if it's not full auto. When a gun is taken in on loan, the gun is run, not the person. So our state's Bureau of Investigation was notified of its existence. Not only is a federal stamp for automatic weapon expensive AF, it's also difficult to obtain, so he was no longer going to purchase it. And it's a good thing because shortly after the gun was seized by ATF, which is when we found out the actual worth. $10,000 20,000. Original owner brought it back as a war trophy. Son is the one who got a loan for like $200, but it was never registered, so it was contraband. Edit. Good news is that it wasn't destroyed but ended up in a museum. Not a pawn shop owner, but was in the pawn shop when this happened. Someone brought in a wheelchair with the tag for the local hospital on the back. Example, property of somewhere hospital. The pawn shop owner told them to leave it and get out. They did, and he called the non-emergency line. The police came and picked it up and took it back to the hospital, or that's what they said they were doing. Why wouldn't you believe them? Were they scooting around in the car park taking turns? In a similar vein, my friend found some weed in the oven he bought from a used appliance store. The shop called him to ask about the oven. Luckily, he didn't give out his address. How much weed? I'm not sure. He said a bag full and valued it at $200 or $300. Literally had a customer come in and say, "Hi, I've just stolen this phone off my sister. How much will you give me for it?" Also had a customer bring in 5 MacBooks at the same time, with a certain logo on it which gave me the impression they were stolen. Told him to leave them with me for testing and called the police. Had another customer bring in a gun and a crossbow. That was weird. I'm in the UK. This is not a normal thing. You always gotta look out for the people bringing in a shit ton of brand spanking new tools or electronics. Over time you learn to read people based on their appearance, behavior, and personal information. An experienced pawnbroker can almost always immediately sleuth out whether they're stolen or not. In these cases, they usually are. I've never had someone intentionally bring in illicit items, but it's important to check pockets and compartments on cases and similar things. It's not unheard of for some eclectic customer to forget about a little baggie of weed they'd stashed. One guy paid off his loan with cash, and there was a thin layer of white residue coating it. First time I'd seen that one. Not illegal, but toward the beginning of the coronavirus outbreak, some wisecrack nutcase did try to sell us disinfectant. Funny but also annoying. Hey, I've got a buddy that specializes in stolen goods. Let me call him up and get him over here. Hey buddy, I valued this thing at $1,000 but I'm gonna say $500 so you can buy it for $150 and pop me a $50. Pawn Stars summarized. Not a pawn shop employee or owner, but I bought an iPod Classic from a pawn shop and it had some of Hitler's speeches and Nazi music on it. I don't know if that's illegal to have Hitler's speeches, but it's certainly very controversial, especially since I've bought it in Germany, in a region that was always a point of conflict between France and Germany. Edit. Thanks for the updates my dudes and dudettes. I don't know if the iPod's contents were specifically illegal, however I would imagine that at least some of the music that was on it was, as it was not historical music but modern sort of shitty metal music like Bosonkel's and some other bands whose music I most certainly won't listen to. Edit 2. The region where I bought it is called Breisgau and it's in the south of Germany next to France and Switzerland, also known as Dreiländereck, which very roughly translates to where three countries meet. Part of the history of the Alsace, Alsace das Alsace, and Germany is that basically Germany and France had been constantly at war to keep or gain the region, so that the people there, to this day, speak German and French because of the constant change in official languages. So having these sentiments is bad and not appropriate, especially at this region. Edit 3. This is getting out of hand. The music was very strange, and for a left-leaning fan of democracy it was very interesting to get a window into that mindset and into how much hate, anger, ignorance, fear and resentment it carries. So whoever owned this iPod must have had a life consumed by hate and fear. As for the iPod, it was in mint condition, so I wiped its storage and put my own music on it, which is quite ironic since I'm a big fan of punk music. The iPod died in an unfortunate drowning accident in my backpack. Not illegal and not a pawn shop owner, but when my first fiancée and I parted ways I went to go sell my ring. She had given me her ring back, so I went to pawn them because I was broke and I got SOOOO many dirty looks for selling an engagement ring. I think they thought I stole it despite what I told them, but them's the breaks, I suppose. My family knew a pawn shop really well and they'd give us a call when their gold guy came through and we'd take a look at the engagement rings the gold guy had received from the various pawn shops. Got some really nice rings for slightly more than their gold value. Great for us, great for the pawn shop, great for the gold guy. Not a pawn shop owner, but I was on the receiving end of someone selling my stolen stuff at one. We had our house burgled in UK. Me and my dad went to some pawn shops to give them a list of everything taken. Whilst we were in there, someone comes up to counter and starts unloading a bunch of stuff they want to pawn. It was our stuff. We got in a major incident inside the shop. The a-hole manager of cash converters was saying it's nothing to do with me. Take it all outside the shop. Sorry buddy, but when you're happy to buy a camera full of someone else's family photos, a laptop, and a bunch of other electronics from two junkies who look like they're homeless, no teeth, obvious signs of drug abuse etc., then it's absolutely 100% your problem to deal with. Police called. Junkies charged with handling stolen goods. I got charged with assault. That was later dropped. Nobody charged with the actual burglary, so no real punishments for anyone involved. Not an owner and not illegal, but one of the guys who worked at the place told me that someone brought in a duck box, a decent sized box that has a switch on it that turns on a motor inside that has a connection to a dildo included. Not a pawn shop owner or employee, but a block away from my high school was a pawn shop. It was announced that everyone in the entire school was going to get a Chromebook to do school work. On the first day that we got the Chromebooks, it was rumored that multiple people had brought them to the pawn shop to make a quick buck. I asked one of my teachers who was in charge of all the Chromebook repairs about this later, and he said that only one student had actually done it that he knew of, and he had used the money to buy weed. Friend of mine owns a shop. One day a woman walks in and asks if there was a female employee she could talk to. No problem, it's a family shop and his 18-year-old daughter comes out to help her. She asks to go out to her car where she opens the trunk. Whole thing is packed with sex toys, bondage shit, outfits and a big box of dildos. Woman says her sister who recently passed away sold the stuff at parties and she had no idea what to do with it. Not illegal, but hilarious. Are you kidding? She had a trunk filled with weapons of mass destruction. I used to work at a pawn store. A shady guy brought in a tiger skull. I don't remember if it was illegal or not, but the owner was yelling at him. He kept coming back brining animal skin and skulls. I think the police drug busted his house, from what the owner told me. A skull? At a pawn store? What a rookie. Gonna need a skull store for that. A TV was stolen from my dad's office and sold to a pawn shop. Pawn America, La Crosse WI. This had been happening with yard decorations and our neighbors told us what pawn shop to look at. Sure enough, it showed up and at first the manager would not provide any info or even cared that we thought it was stolen. My dad then offered to buy it and requested that the TV be plugged in to check for defects. It worked just fine and my dad said he will take it, but then pulled the remote out his pocket that the thief didn't take and turned the TV off, proving it was his. The manager then had to call and report this. Turns out accepting a TV without a remote is a red flag that he missed in this case. The manager quit, but the general belief was he knew most of the stuff he was selling was stolen, but he fudged paperwork to keep the thief's identity a secret. My dad put him in his place and humiliated him in the most simple way for being a lying duck. Really nice old looking farmer man walks in with a shotgun with a barrel with alright too short. Long story short, boss bought it off of him and immediately called the local PD to tell them. Cop asked if you could just remove the barrel and dispose of it as it was too much paperwork and hassle to come down and get it. Local PD are a ducking joke. Okay, I'm not a pawn shop owner, but I know a few. One thing I've seen was a guy who brought in smoke grenades and M249 saw belts that he had stolen from our local military drill center. Another was a guy at a local gun store who brought in a pistol that had an illegal oil filter suppressor on it. They told the guy get the duck out and go destroy that thing. Stealing weaponry from a military drill center. This thread is full of bold brazen criminals, but that takes the cake from me. That's someone with no fear. Not porn. Metal recycler. And the customer was me. Well, sort of me. I was digging up metal from farms and bringing it in for scrap to feed my drag racing habit. My small town had a fairly popular official track that ran bracket races on Sunday. Farmers were happy to get rid of the junk pile and I was young, willing and knew how to use a cutting torch, so win-win. I soon exhausted my supply and started moving further afield looking for material, which is where things kinda went south. So there was this very large military base range nearby, Canada, so security was nearly non-existent in 1980s BFN while there were not operations going on. I learned I could talk my way past the guard station by telling them I worked for the city and was sent to go remove old equipment at one of the gas wells that pocketed the landscape. This gave me access to the range and a lot of fragments of metal. I cannot believe no one questioned the junk I was hauling out in the back of my truck from salvaging various shot up wrecks across the range. Never lifted the tarp even once. Well, one day I came across this odd object. Kinda bullet shaped but really ducking big. Weighed probably 200 pounds. Had this nifty clockwork mechanism in the noise that I could see. Thought the damage it received slamming into the prairie. Thinking it was solid steel, I cranked it onto the back of my truck with my hand cranked crane and drove off. Got to my buddy's place and he really wanted the thing. Paid me way more for it than I would have gotten for it for scrap. It sat in his living room for about a year. We used it as a footstool while we hit our numerous bong sessions. Even discussed maybe turning it into a really big hookah. Eventually I picked up a welding apprentice job by then, so was getting more per hour than ranging for scrap. So buddy has to move and his mom says no way can that piece of junk come to the new house. So he gets me to load it up and bring it to the scrapyard so he can get the scrap value out of this big chunk of iron. I was bummed we didn't do the hookah idea, but WTH. So I unload it, and he proceeds to roll it in. Well, apparently one of the guys who works there was wise to what it really was, and suddenly people start coming out of the building and standing around. Then I hear sirens. Well, adding shit up, I decided it was best if I was no longer there, still sitting in the truck, and slowly drove off like I knew nothing. It was on the news that night. Apparently our footstool cum hooker was actually a large caliber high explosive artillery round. They moved it a short distance and detonated it, which left an impressive 15 feet diameter crater. When I think about how close we came to being red mist at any point over that year, I just shake my head in amazement I survived my teen years. I'm not an owner, but I once saw someone try to sell a vintage 1940s concealed firearm to the pawn shop. This was illegal as heck and the owner had to turn him down. Employee here, not an owner, but I don't know if it's necessarily illegal, but one time a guy brought me a handful of human teeth with bloody roots and gold filings. He wanted me to extract the gold. I said no thanks bro. My dad's friend works at a pawn shop in a shitty area and has had some crazy shit come in. Mostly stolen guns and tools, but the story he likes to tell is when a homeless guy tried to sell a sawed-off shotgun covered in tape. They called the cops and the guy tells them he found it in the park. I don't like pawn shops. My buddy had his surfboard stolen. A few weeks later he found his board in a pawn shop. My buddy approached the staff and said it was his and it had been stolen. The staff then told him he had to buy the board or he wanted it back. The police were called because the board was reported stolen. Upon the arrival of the police, my buddy learned that he still had to buy the board if he wanted it back and then file a claim with the state to get his money back. Why does the state cover pawn shops selling stolen goods? My time to shine. My house was broken into years back. They stole very particular items. My mom's laptop, which was hidden under the couch, our great grandmother's jewelry and such. My laptop, Wacom pen, tablet and iPad were all sitting on the kitchen table. The only thing they took was my iPad and the pen to my Wacom tablet. They left my laptop and the Wacom pen tablet. Remember these points for later. The cops couldn't find any good prints to run through the database and no one was immediately found as a suspect. Fast forward a few months. My brother, who manages one of the biggest pawn shops in our city, calls me to tell me that some guy just tried to pawn my iPad. The dude hands the iPad to my brother. Brother turns it on and the home screen is set to a picture of me and my nephew. Brother tells dude that he has to take it to the back and check the serial numbers after getting the guy's driver's license. Brother calls cops and then comes back out to tell guy he has to keep the iPad because it's stolen property. Dude books it out of there, but he wasn't very bright. My brother has all of his personal information. The cops did an investigation and come to find out, this dude is the head of a large drug theft ring. His cronies steal things. They have to give him the stolen goods, then he gives them the drugs. Well, a few more months go by and we find out that our mom's best friend's boyfriend was the guy who had put the hit on our house. He had an oxy problem due to a bad back surgery and a drug dealing doctor. When the doc cut the supply, he turned to other means. It wasn't him that broke in or stole our stuff. However, he knew I used my computer for my job and made sure they left my laptop and stole my mom's. He and his boss, along with multiple other addicts, career thieves, were brought down by my iPad. The cops said they had broken into an estimated 300 plus homes and had stolen millions of dollars in property. Whoa, you made it to the end? You're a ducking beast. I'll cut you a deal. Smash like and subscribe for more curated content, bruh. It's free and that's a great price.